Will the internet go down? The whole damn internet. The reason I've been thinking about this particular subject is a tweet. Now, it was a few months back now, and it was a tweet from the Silicon Valley investor Marc Andreessen. He said, buy physical copies of any book you plan to read in the future, and then just for dramatic effect, do it now. If you don't know who this guy is, he played a pretty pivotal role in the early development of the web. He wrote one of the first web browsers, Mosaic. He founded Netscape, which you'll probably have heard of if you're over 30. Now, whether you like the guy or not, I think he's worth listening to on certain subjects. One of those certain subjects is the internet. Is he suggesting that the internet might go down somehow, that all those books you've got on the cloud might vanish? Or is he making a point about censorship? Now, he didn't clarify what he meant, but it did get me thinking. So something that I talk about over and over is the beginning of the age of air. This is essentially a 200-year period we've pretty much just entered. It's going to be characterized by incredible technological and philosophical developments, as well as the dissolution of many of the structures that we rely on. I have a video on the subject, check it out if you want to learn more. Now, ages of air tend to be characterized by the rapid spread and diffusion of ideas. But I've been researching these periods and I found a couple of interesting facts. Two most famous libraries in world history. Number one, the Library of Alexandria, and number two, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Both of these libraries were immense collections of the latest knowledge available to humanity at that time. Now, here's the crazy thing. Both of them were destroyed during ages of air. The Library of Alexandria was established in the 3rd century BCE. It was the greatest center of learning in the world at that time. It was believed to hold anything from 40,000 to 400,000 scrolls. Now, it was burned several times during its long history. In 48 BCE, Julius Caesar burned it, apparently by accident. He ordered his men to set fire to boats in Alexandria's harbor, and apparently some library buildings ended up catching fire. That wasn't a deliberate attempt to destroy the library. Later in the history of the ancient world, Christianity becomes dominant, and around 400 CE, the Christian patriarch Theophilus ordered that the library be destroyed. It contained pagan learning that he deemed heretical. Now, in 640 CE, Alexandria was conquered by an Islamic army led by the Caliph Omar. Now, by legend, Omar too wanted the library to be destroyed. He said that the contents of the library either contradict the Quran, in which case they are heresy, or they will agree with it, so they are superfluous. He ordered the book to be used as tinder for the city's bathhouses, and apparently those scrolls lasted for a good 6 months. Now, that last story may or may not be true. The Islamic civilization of that period had a great respect for learning of all kinds. And here we encounter another great library, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Baghdad was the greatest city in the world in the 8th and 9th centuries. This was the Islamic Golden Age. Now, the House of Wisdom was said to contain all the great writing and philosophy in the world of that time, and it lasted for a few hundred years. But in 1258, the Caliph fell foul of another great empire, that of the Mongols. You did not want to do that. In 1258, the Mongols laid siege to Baghdad, and eventually they destroyed the whole city. They killed its entire population or sold them into slavery, and they threw the contents of the House of Wisdom into the river Tigris. Hello friends, yes, I've changed my shirt. I'm just going to interrupt the narrative for a few seconds to remind you that I am a consulting astrologer, and I currently have spaces in my schedule to meet new clients. Now, in my practice, I use traditional and modern techniques to help people find their place and purpose in the world. That's particularly valuable right now during these difficult, transformative times, and I'd love to see some of you for one-on-ones. If you'd like to book a consultation, just head to my website, danwaitesastrology.com, and click on the Book a Consultation button in the top right. Okay, let's get back to it. So what does all this have to do with the internet? Well, there are no great libraries anymore, but we don't need them. I think that's exactly what the internet is. It's a storehouse of all the wisdom of the world, and it's available to all of us. It's essentially a huge public library. So now maybe you can see what I'm getting at. We saw how these two great libraries were destroyed during ages of air. Are we going to see something happen to the internet during ours? One thing I've learned from studying elemental ages is that the elemental age of the time tells us something about the dialectics of the time, of the forces that are in tension, and the domain in which conflict takes place. In ages of fire, for example, we fight over freedom and sovereignty. At the end of the last age of fire, for example, we had the American Revolution, we had the French Revolution, we had the Haitian Revolution. In ages of earth, we fight over material things. Think about all the colonial wars that were fought in the 19th and 20th century. In ages of water, we fight over religion and clan loyalty. It's all very Game of Thrones. During the last age of water, for example, Europe was consumed by war over religion between Protestantism and Catholicism. But in ages of air, we often see conflict over ideas. During the last age of air, for example, we had the birth of the Inquisition. But we also see air in how war is waged. We see information war, emphasis on propaganda. And part of making war on your enemy can be to destroy the technology that they use to store and distribute information. That's what I think we see when we look at the burning of those libraries, and it's also something I consider when I think about the future of the internet. Now, don't freak out. I don't think this is happening tomorrow. But with all of that said, I do want to note something, which is this. The World Wide Web has a natal chart. Now, this natal chart is dated the 6th of August, 1991. The web's a Leo. Now, apparently this is the moment that Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the web, introduced it on a newsgroup. So one thing we can note is that the web has already been through its Saturn return. And as the astrologer Chris Brennan has pointed out on his astrology podcast, this may have something to do with the debate over information and misinformation during the COVID-19 pandemic. But something else I want to point out is the position of Saturn in this chart. It's at 2 degrees and 44 minutes of Aquarius. That's very interesting because Pluto, the planet of transformation and death rebirth processes, is heading into Aquarius in March 2023. And it will reach the degree of the web's Saturn, that's 2 degrees and 44 minutes, roughly in February of 2025. So if Saturn has something to do with the structure of the web or with its status in society, that Pluto transit is pretty interesting, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. So I'm not saying Marc Andreessen's right, but I would just ask the question, how many real books do I actually have? That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe right now. See you next time.